For those of you just joining us or rejoining us, this is Rebecca Shanlever. I'm a labor and employment attorney with the law firm Hall, Arbery, Gilligan, Roberts, and Shanlever in Atlanta, Georgia. This is a seminar on preventing FMLA abuse, and we are now on our real-life example number 3. This one is Friday, Monday migraines. Jane is your employee, a receptionist, and she says she's got severe migraines. Because of what her job is and because we don't have a lot of staff to fill in, it's hard for the office to run without Jane, especially when we don't have very much notice. Jane has given us medical certification that says she'll need to be out 3 or 4 days a month because of migraines. And it also says that she won't be able to predict when the migraines are going to hit. Of course, you allow Jane to have her leave, but after a few months, you start noticing that almost all of the days she's out for migraines are on Fridays and Mondays. So Friday, Monday migraines example is kind of like a combination of our last 2 examples. We've got intermittent leave, which is that taking leaves in little chunks that is so difficult to manage. And we have this pattern of leave kind of starting to look like a coincidence. Okay, fine, your certification says you can be out 3 to 4 days a month, but when all 4 of those days are Fridays or Mondays, it starts to look like maybe the headaches are Monday mornings, I don't feel like coming to work headaches, or Friday mornings, I've been out last night hangover headaches. So how do we manage this situation with Jane and her migraines that fall only on Fridays and Mondays? Well, one thing that we can do is to ask for recertification. This is when you have an existing medical certification, but the employees, which we do in this case, but the employee's pattern of leave is not matching up with what the medical certification said, or that we are just not sure, we have reason to believe that perhaps the need for leave isn't actually occurring. So what you do with recertification is just ask for the healthcare provider to provide an additional certification and let us know whether there have been any changes in the employee's serious health condition, any changes in the employee's need for leave, and in some cases you can just share with the provider, here are the days that this employee has been absent in the last 6 months. Does this pattern of leave match up with what your certification says? And if it doesn't, have there been any changes that we need to know about? Give us an additional certification that says, you know, she needs Fridays and Mondays off because the migraines are more likely to occur on those days. You never know what the certification is going to say, but if it's supposed to be random, then it shouldn't all be Fridays and Mondays. So asking for recertification is an important tool that employers have. There are limits on the number of times and how often an employer can ask for recertification, but it is an available tool, and this is certainly a good example of where it is a good one to use. Another thing we can do, and we talked about this a little bit before, is to put in place and then follow a call-in policy. Again, we can't impose a call-in requirement only on Jane in response to this particular fact pattern. We have to have an established policy that applies to all employees who are out of the office, out of work, whether that's for FMLA leave or for any other reason. That call-in policy, again, requires Jane to let us know as soon as possible that she's not going to be at work. And again, it's difficult to manage when she can't predict that the migraines are occurring, but there may be at least some trigger so that you have a little bit of notice. And if you follow that call-in policy, then at least she has to call and you don't just show up at the office and she's not there. Another important thing is to stay in communication with Jane. whether it's that one of the policies I mentioned earlier where the employer calls the employee at home, or whether you're just, generally checking up on her to know what's happening. Hey, Jane, you're not here today. Are you out for your migraines, or is it something else? And that way she knows that you are tracking her absences and that you are following up with her, and that if she is going to be out, it has to be for this FMLA certified reason of the migraines. And again, keeping track of the absences is important so that you have a record of, it doesn't just seem like she's out every Monday and Friday. You can show these are the days that she actually was absent. You can actually show, on a calendar, this is when she wasn't here. Another important reason for tracking absences under any FMLA scenario is so that you keep track of how much leave an employee has used. The 12 weeks will eventually run out. It takes a long time, and sometimes it never runs out in intermittent leave situations, but if you don't keep track of it, you never know what may happen with Jane later in the year, and she needs leave for surgery or something else. And if she's already used a bunch of Fridays and Mondays and it's added up to maybe 6 weeks of FMLA leave total, then she only has 6 weeks left for the surgery that she needs. And so it's important to keep track of that leave under all circumstances, even if you don't think the employee is ever going to run out within the year, because you don't know what could happen, later in the year. Another thing that you could do is to consider putting Jane in a different role. This is a drastic solution, and it only works in certain circumstances, but it can be a helpful tool depending on what the person's job duties are. Because Jane is the receptionist, and it's so important for her to sort of be the front person there in the office, and because you don't have anybody else who can fill in for her, it's possible that her position would qualify for a transfer to a different role, perhaps a supporting role, something that's not, the face of the office, at least for the time period while she needs her leave, if that position is one that you can sort of manage the intermittent leave a little better. Receptionists and other similar positions, you need that person there during office hours every single day to greet people coming into your office. A person who has more back office responsibility, working on accounting or something like that, maybe it's a little easier to handle when he or she is out without a lot of notice. So again, there are lots of requirements for moving an employee to a different position, and it has to be similar pay and the same pay and similar position, but it is an option in certain circumstances like this one where the role that the employee is in really makes it difficult to manage the intermittent leave. If you are going to do that, make sure you consult counsel, review the regulations carefully, but that one is an option that may work in this situation.